You see, one of the most painful things a person can experience is the departure of someone they thought was supposed to stay. A friend, a partner, a confidant, someone who once held your hand during storms and sat beside you in silence, suddenly fades away. And naturally, the first thing we do is question ourselves. What did I do wrong? Why did they leave? Was I not enough? But the truth is, their absence might not a result of your failure. It might be the result of your growth. There is something very curious about the nature of divine timing. It always knows more than we do. When something is removed from our lives, especially someone we care deeply for, we often rush to label it as rejection. But what if it's not rejection at all? What if it's redirection? What if that space they left behind was actually sacred ground, cleared not for despair, but for destiny? Now, I don't mean this in a way that makes light of heartbreak. No, the HE is real. The tears are real. But so is the wisdom that flows in quietly after the storm has passed. There's something profound about the silence that follows a goodbye. In that space, if we listen carefully, we begin to hear a whisper, not from the world, but from within. That whisper says, trust it, trust the loss, trust the shift, trust the disappearance. Because maybe, just maybe, the absence of certain people is God's way of making room for something they could never carry. Think about this. When a rocket prepares for launch, there are parts, boosters, that help it rise but aren't meant to stay attached the whole way. They fall away when they've served their purpose, not because they were useless, but because their job was temporary. Some people in your life were never meant to go you all the way. They were just there to help you lift off. And if you try to bring them into a space they're not designed for, the weight will pull you back down. It's tempting to hold on. We're taught to fight for relationships, to never give up on people, but there's a difference between giving up and letting go. Giving up is rooted in fear, but letting God that's rooted in wisdom. Because sometimes in holding on too tightly, we block the very flow of life trying to move through us. Imagine clinging to a vine swinging across a canyon. At some point, to get to the other side, you have to let go. If you don't, you'll just dangle endlessly in the middle, neither here nor there. Life doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards surrender, and the divine has no interest in dragging old stories into new chapters. Now, you might ask, but why would God remove someone who felt so right? And I'd say, because your next level requires clarity. It requires a new vibration. It requires the shedding of what no longer serves. Not because it was evil or toxic, but because it was simply complete. Like the final page of a chapter that ends so the story can continue. And you're not being punished. You're being positioned for purpose, positioned for peace, positioned for people who are equipped not only to walk with you, but to grow with you. You don't need to fear the empty spaces. They're not voids, they're invitations. Invitations for alignment, for expansion, for divine encounters that couldn't until certain doors were closed. So the next time someone leaves, instead of asking, why did they go? Try asking, what is life making room for? Because what feels like loss is often sacred choreography. an invisible intelligence rearranging your life for your highest good. And if you can sit with the discomfort long enough, you'll realizing nothing real is ever lost. Only that which was never meant to stay can truly be removed. Let it go and let the unfolding begin. We often assume that the people who start with us are meant to finish with us, that those who clapped for us in the beginning will still be around when the curtain rises on the next act. But life doesn't work like that. Life, in its strange and beautiful wisdom, doesn't always allow everyone to make the full journey with us. Some people were only meant to walk a certain stretch of the path, not because they're bad, not because they failed, but simply because your destination is different from theirs. And that's not betrayal. That's evolution. There's a moment in every soul's journey when the terrain changes, the scenery shifts. You begin to climb, not metaphorically, but in a very real sense. Your awareness starts to rise, your spirit starts to awaken, your direction begins to narrow. It's like hiking up a mountain. The higher you go, the fewer people can come along. Not because you're better than them, but because the air gets thinner and those who are not built for the altitude will begin to fall away, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. You see, at certain heights, you can't afford to carry excess weight. You can't be surrounded by those who question your steps every time you move. You can't keep explaining your vision to people who only see in grayscale while you've started to perceive in color. It's not their fault. They're just not wired for your elevation. And it's okay. Truly, it's okay. But here's where it gets tricky. Because we're human, we crave connection, we hold on. We try to take everyone with us, thinking loyalty means dragging dead weight. But loyalty to your future sometimes requires disloyalty to your comfort zone. And people, bless them, don't always respond kindly when they sense they're being left behind. They might call it arrogance. They might say, you've changed. And the truth is, you have changed. That was the whole point. The next level of your life demands a new atmosphere, one that isn't crowded by old expectations or limited thinking, one that isn't laced with jealousy dressed up as concern. As you grow, your life begins to expose things. Insecurities, competition, silent sabotage, and not everyone can stand in that kind of illumination. So some were fine with you as long as you stayed small. They loved the version of you that didn't threaten their sense of self. But the moment you began to expand, to think differently, to walk with more intention, they grew uncomfortable, and that's not your burden to carry. Elevation is not selfish. It's sacred. It's what you were made for. But it will cost you. It will cost you relationships that once made you feel safe. It will cost you approval from people who never really saw you in the first place. It will cost you the comfort of being understood. But what you gain is clarity. What you gain is alignment. What you gain is a tribe that resonates with who you are becoming, not who you've been. The truth is, you won't reach your next level by dragging people who were never meant to go there. You can love them. You can pray for them. You can honor the part they played. But you cannot stay behind to make them comfortable. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is to keep climbing, to trust that if they were truly meant to be there, they'd already be walking beside you. You won't have to beg. You won't have to shrink. The right people breathe the same air you do. They don't suffocate when you rise. So if they couldn't handle your next level, it's because they weren't assigned to it. And that's not rejection, it's release. Let them go. The mountain is waiting. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How people can sit beside you, laugh with you, pray with you, even cry with you, and still carry something hidden behind their eyes. We are taught to see the best in people, to give the benefit of the doubt, to believe that shared moments equal shared intentions. But time, with all its mysterious grace, reveals what was once concealed. And when you're walking toward something sacred, toward purpose, toward elevation, you begin to see more clearly, not because your eyes have changed, but because the light around you has intensified. When the divine begins to lift you, there's an exposing that happens. Not to shame, not to punish, but to protect. The closer you get to your purpose, the less room there is for illusion. You can't afford to be surrounded by those who smile outwardly and yet carry quiet resentment in their hearts. People who celebrate you when you're struggling, but grow silent when you start to rise. That's not love, that's hidden envy. And no matter how well it's disguised, light always finds the truth. There's something about divine timing that doesn't just remove people. It reveals them first. It lets you see their posture, their motives, their quiet intentions. You notice the shift, the way the room goes quiet when your name is praised, the way support turns into subtle sabotage. And at first, you want to ignore it. You convince yourself you're being too sensitive, too paranoid, but the truth has a way of tapping on your shoulder until you can't pretend it away anymore. And when you finally see it, really see it, it's jarring because you trusted them. You shared parts of yourself they didn't deserve. You thought they were safe. But not everyone who walks with you is walking for you. Some are simply walking near you, and the distinction matters. But here's the beauty in all of ITR. The exposure is never meant to harden you. It's meant to refine you, to help you discern more clearly, to teach you the language of energy, because words can lie, but energy never does. You begin to feel when some presence is off, even if their tone is polite. You begin to sense when someone is clapping for your success, but secretly hoping you trip. And once that sense awakens in you, it's hard to unsee it. So what happens next is not always gentle. The shaking begins. God starts removing the ones who were camouflaged in kindness, but carrying comparison in their hearts. He takes the masks off, not to destroy them, but to liberate you. Because your next level cannot carry hidden snakes beneath the table. And it's not your job to fight them. It's not your job to expose them yourself. It's your job to notice and let them fall away when they can't stand the light. It's funny how often we pray for elevation, for expansion, for clarity. And when it comes, we don't recognize it because it doesn't always arrive in blessing. It often arrives in breaking. It arrives when the friend you trusted disappears, when the circle you thought was solid begins to crumble. But you ask for truth. You ask for alignment, for God to surround you with realness. And realness sometimes requires the removal of everything false. Let it go. The ones who are, for you will never flinch in the presence of your growth. They will not compete. They will not diminish. They will rise with you or cheer from wherever they are. But those who fold in the face of your rising, they were never built for the fire that forget you. So let the light do what it must. Let it reveal, let it clear, let it protect. And when all is said and done, trust that what remains is what was always real. As you grow into who you're meant to be, something begins to happen. Quietly at first, almost unnoticeably. The things you used to tolerate start to bother you. Conversations that once entertained you begin to feel shallow. Environments that once made you feel at home begin to feel foreign. It's not because you've become cold or distant. It's because your spirit is evolving. Your calling is awakening. And when your calling awakens, so too does your sensitivity to what no longer serves it. Your anointing, this inner flame, this deep sense of something more, is not random. It's not ego. It's not ambition. It's a sacred invitation. And that invitation begins to demand a higher circle, not a louder one, not a busier one, just one that resonates on the same frequency as your purpose. The company you keep matters deeply, not just emotionally, but spiritually. Because as you're being called into higher realms of thought, expression, and being, the people around you must be able to hold that space with you. Otherwise, they'll unknowingly or sometimes intentionally pull you back into places you've already outgrown. And here's the tension. We're taught to be loyal, to stick by those we've grown with. But what do you do when your growth begins to outpace the environment that nurtured you? What happens when the very voices that once uplifted you now question every step forward you take? It's not betrayal to outgrow people. It's a sign that you're listening, that you're finally tuned in to the deeper rhythm of your life. There are people who are wonderful human beings, kind, funny, well-meaning, but they're not designed for the weight of your calling. They can't hold space for the depth of your insight. They can't challenge you in the ways your next season requires. And that's okay. It's not judgment, it's an observation. A rose doesn't despise the soil it grew from, but it must reach beyond it if it's ever going to bloom. As your anointing deepens, you'll notice a need for conversations that stretch you, not shrink you. Relationships that sharpen you, not dull you. Environments that nurture your soul, not just your ego. You'll begin to crave stillness, wisdom, peace. You'll feel uneasy in drama, uncomfortable in chaos. Not because you've become antisocial, but because your soul has become selective. This shift can be lonely. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. There's a loneliness that comes with elevation. Not because you're isolated, but because the path narrows. And when the path narrows, only those who are truly aligned can walk beside you. Some people are brilliant at your past level, but that doesn't guarantee they belong in your future. You don't have to apologize for raising your standard. You're not being difficult. You're being deliberate. Every next level of your life will demand a version of you that's more refined, more focused, more anchored. And the people who surround that version must either elevate with you or respectfully part ways. Not everyone is meant to witness your arrival. Some were only there to witness your beginning. And so let it fall away what no longer fits, what no longer flows. Let the silence of transition teach you what noise once distracted you from, because what's coming into your life now will require clarity, discernment, and strength. And those things are born in the sacred solitude between levels. Trust this, when the circle shifts, it's not rejection, it's divine alignment. The right people won't fear your growth, they'll feed it. So walk forward and let the presence of your calling be the only approval you ever truly need. There's a strange irony to how life unfolds. We pray for clarity, we beg for purpose. We whisper into the quiet corners of the night asking for growth, for elevation, for peace, for peace. But when the answers begin to come, they rarely look the way we expected. Instead of clear skies and warm embraces, they arrive in silence, in departure, in the H of someone walking away. And it feels cruel, unfair, even like life is playing a joke we didn't sign up for. But sometimes the most painful goodbyes are the exact answers to the prayers we didn't know how to word out loud. You asked for healing, and then someone left. You asked for alignment, and then a friendship crumbled. You asked for peace, and chaos rose to the surface before it fell away. At first, you don't see the connection. You just see the loss. You feel the sting of detachment. But when you step back, or when you breathe into the space they once occupied, a realization begins to surfing. A telescope, they were the weight you didn't know were carrying, the distraction you thought was comfort, the limitation dressed as loyalty. It's easy to romanticize the past, to hold on to memories like they're evidence that someone was meant to stay. But presence in your life doesn't always equal purpose in your journey. Some people were there for a reason, yes, but not for every season. And when that season shifts, it often does so without warning. The conversation ends, the phone stops ringing, the closeness fades, and what's left is a void that seems to echo with every question you can't answer. But sit with that void. Don't rush to fill it. Don't panic in the presence of space. That emptiness is sacred. It's the soil from which understanding begins to grow. It's where the whisper of the divine becomes audible again. A telescope. You'll start to hear the quiet truth. You didn't lose anything that was meant to stay. What left your life wasn't punishment. It was pruning. Because where you're going, you can't carry the weight of everyone's expectations. You can't keep explaining your evolution to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You can't stay planted in old soil and expect to bear new fruit. That act you feel, telescope, it's not a sign of failure, it's a sign of breaking through. And it's okay to grieve. Let yourself feel the loss. Let yourself miss them. But don't let that grief trick you into believing the past held more promise than your future. Sometimes the pain is just the cost of becoming. You can't step into your next chapter while dragging the torn pages of a story that's already been written. The truth is, when you prayed for strength, the answer wasn't a lightning bolt. It was the removal of people who kept you weak. When you asked for clarity. The answer wasn't a vision, it was the exposure of those who clouded your view. And when you asked for peace, the answer wasn't still water. It was the storm that cleared the deck. Answers rarely come wrapped in comfort. They come disguised as endings. And yet, if you lean in, you'll notice something quietly beautiful. In the space where they used to be, there's room now for breath, for clarity, for deeper alignment. There's space for the right people, people who don't flinch at your growth, who don't need you to shrink to make them feel whole, who don't disappear when your light gets brighter. So don't resent the departure. Don't curse the loss. They were simply not equipped to go where you're going. They telescoped, they couldn't hold the vision, couldn't rise with you. And that's not your burden to carry. What felt like abandonment was actually the answer. The door they walked out of was the one you prayed for, even if you didn't know it yet. So trust the goodbye. It's making room for something far greater to arrive. It's easy to feel uneasy when things start to disappear from your life. The silence after someone walks away, the emptiness where laughter used to be, the sudden stillness of a once vibrant connection. It can all feel like a loss, like something's been taken from you. But if you sit with that stillness long enough, something remarkable begins to unfold. That space you keep staring at, it's not a void, it's preparation. It's life clearing the room, making space for what's next. And while the transition feels uncomfortable, even painful, it's never without purpose. When God removes people from your life, it's never just subtraction, it's rearrangement, a quiet, precise orchestration that your mind not understand yet, but your spirit will in time, because the people who left weren't equipped to build with you. They couldn't hold the vision. They couldn't carry the weight of your becoming. And rather than weigh you down with that misalignment, life did what it always does. It whispered a shift, and it moved them out of the way. The problem is we often misinterpret that space as loneliness. We rush to fill it with noise, with company, with distractions. We grab at old things and call them comfort. We reach for familiar hands, even if they once caused us pain, because the idea of being alone seems unbearable. But that emptiness isn't a punishment. It's a womb. A sacred, silent space where new things are allowed to form. Ideas, telescope visions, connections that match who you're becoming, not who you used to be. And if you wait just a little longer in that quiet, you'll begin to feel it. The shift, the pull, the subtle alignment of things you couldn't have planned if you tried. A new conversation, a new opportunity, a sense of peace that isn't loud, but deeply rooted. That's what was coming all along. It was never about the person who left. It was about the space their departure created. You see, purpose doesn't operate in clutter. Destiny doesn't rush into crowded rooms. What's meant for you needs room to breathe, to hope, to stretch, to grow. And if certain people had stayed, their presence would have suffocated what's now trying to bloom. That doesn't make them bad people. It just means their season expired. And when a season is over, the most loving thing life can do is end it. Even if you're not ready to let go, you won't always understand why someone had to go. But you look back one day and see it clearly, their absence allowed your clarity. Their silence gave birth to your voice. Their departure made space for someone or something far more aligned with your path. You needed that space. You needed to remember what it felt like to stand on your own, to trust your own rhythm, to listen to your own inner voice without outside noise clouding the message. And trust me, the right people, those who belong at your next level, won't be intimidated by your growth. They won't shrink in your light. They won't compete or compare or question why you've changed. They'll recognize you not because you stayed the same, but because they're growing too. And when you meet them, when your paths finally align, there'll be no confusion, no resistance, just peace. So stop mourning the space, start blessing it. That gap you're staring into, it's not emptiness. It's an invitation, an open canvas where the divine can now paint something far more beautiful than what you lost. Something that fits, something that fuels, something that speaks the same language as your soul. And when it comes, you'll know. A telescope, because it won't make you question your worth. It won't require you to dim your light. It will feel like home, like something that was always meant to find you once you made room for it. So breathe it, trust, and honor the space, because only in emptiness can the fullness of life truly arrive.